Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel for my second ever in my life YouTube video ever. Okay, hope it's going to be good. So we have a super cluster of planets in Aries. Okay, there are freaking 7 planets in Aries. I've heard a lot of astrologers talking about how they tried to dig back in time and find out when there were this many planets in Aries, and they could not find a time. So this is a really big event, all this new stuff in Aries, which essentially means rebirth, restart, new identity, all the people, everyone, especially if you actually have planets in Aries, and especially if those planets are your sun, moon, or especially your rising sign. However, it is relevant for everyone, okay? It's relevant for everyone. It's going to hit hardest on the cardinal signs because those are hard aspects, either conjunction, square, or opposition. This is going to be easiest and smoothest and most supportive to the other fire signs. And this is going to also be pretty fluid for generally the air signs. But of course, all of us have we've got planets all over the place. But this is just if you have your sun, moon, rising, or your most dominant signs, or planets, or if you have a stellium in one of those signs, you're going to expect to feel this super stellium new moon in a particular way. Okay, but everyone's going to feel it, and hopefully we are all rising to the occasion that is this whole chart, and we are stepping into the next level of our identities individually, claiming our spiritual sovereignty, and then also figuring out what does that mean and how are we going to go about, putting that into action, embodying that. And that's what Aries season is all about, active embodiment. Okay, so let's get into the chart. We've got the chart here, and it is set up for this new moon. We can see the sun and the moon are conjunct at 27 degrees 29 minutes of Aries, also conjunct with Chiron and with Eris. And there are so many planets and points in Aries that they literally don't even fit in the chart. You see right here, they are not fitting in the chart. Okay, so let me just get rid of that. Anyway, I'm just having a lot of fun playing with these little tools and seeing what I can do with them. So hopefully I can use them well. All right. We've got the sun and the moon conjunct Aries, Eris, and Chiron, right? So that is stellium number 1. These 4 celestial bodies in Aries at the very last signs. And that's the main event. However, because there is also so much going on in the early degrees of Aries, it would be totally remiss to not make that another major feature, because we've got Neptune, Mercury, Mars, and Saturn all smacked up in the early degrees of Aries. Some of them a little bit more on top of each other than others. And again, we will go into all those things. All right. So also is super relevant to discuss what's going on with the outer planets and how they are interplaying with all that's going on in Aries. So we see this cluster here at the beginning degrees of Aries is making a sextile to Pluto and Juno over here, but most importantly, Pluto over here in the early degrees of Aquarius. This cluster is also making another sextile to Uranus at the very last degrees of Taurus. Okay, this is what's called a minor grand trine, and this is where these outer planets that are moving very slowly, particularly Pluto, Neptune / Saturn, but especially Neptune and Uranus, are moving very, very slowly, and they are roughly in a sextile to each other, and they have been and are gonna be in a sextile to each other for a while, okay, for at least this year plus, okay, and into the following years. There is actually going to be a period where they're going to be, moving forward together, so that even though they're moving forward, they're remaining in this configuration of this minor grand trine, which is working super duper favorably to support humanity in this great awakening that we have. Neptune coming into the 0 degrees of Aries with Saturn, reawakening of our individualized spiritual authority, reclaiming our God essence, reclaiming our connection to source, reclaiming that we are the divine embodied, okay? And Pluto in Aquarius is power to the people in super short. That's just the super simplified, like way, maybe even oversimplified, but that's what Pluto in Aquarius is about: power to the people, power of your individual self. And that is rising, and it's only going to become stronger and more relevant as Pluto moves up through the degrees of Aquarius throughout the next several years. Uranus is again at the very tail end of Taurus and about to move into Gemini, another air sign. A few weeks from now, we can really expect things to pick up pace because Uranus doesn't like to be in Taurus. It's way too slow. It's a sign of detriment or fall, or one of the two. And in Gemini, like Uranus and Gemini can really get along. They can really get some things done. They can really like be on the same, at least pace, if not page. Uranus is our higher mind, future, evolution, the innovator and the liberator within each and every one of us. And Gemini is our minds and our communication and the way that we think and the way that we go about our daily lives, right? And so Uranus is bringing a sense of freedom, liberation, innovation to the way that we go about our daily lives and the way that we communicate. Also, the two of these together is major electricity, major technology, innovations, explosions there. So even though it looks like on some, podcasters and some places, depending where you look, like AI is going to take over the world, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that this is all really positive stuff that is leading humanity towards a future of collective prosperity and utilizing our innovation and our technology to serve and benefit Aries, like the breath of life. That is us. That is the individual. Okay. Anyway, so that's the backdrop in which this Aries new moon is taking place. And I don't think that you can talk about that Aries new moon without also talking about what's happening with these big outer planets. Okay, that really sets the stage for how this is playing out at an individual level, which is what the personal planets show us, and the outer planets show us like what is taking place on the greater state of humanity. So now that we've set the stage, now let's get into this actual new moon. Okay, so we've got the sun, the moon, together within 1 degree of Chiron and within 2 degrees of Eris. Chiron and Eris actually have really similar themes. Both of them are parts of us that were discarded, either by others or by ourselves. So this is a wound of abandonment and rejection. And in Aries, it can be even about self-abandonment and self-rejection. It can be experiences or things that we've felt and lived through in this life or in past lifetimes that have caused us to feel this deep wound that we're not enough and that we have to perform and achieve and serve, etc. We have to do all this doing just to be deserving. And this new moon is highlighting and renewing our sense of self and our sense of, yes, I am freaking worthy and I don't have to be or do or serve anyone in order for my experience, my, my breath, my voice, my life to have meaning, to have validity, and for me to just deserve to be here. Okay. That's a major wound that we've all been hopefully working on since Chiron has been in the sign of Aries since around February of 2019. And now this is like the culmination of that. This is a lot of us also breaking free from that patriarchal conditioning that we, especially as Americans, but in all these like capitalized nations where it's like do, serve, perform, and then you can exist. Then you can have like just barely enough to meet your basic needs, right? And we're breaking out of that. Okay, Uranus is helping us break out of that. Uranus at the last degrees of Taurus is, and especially with Venus now in Taurus, Venus ruling our sense of values and self-worth, and as well as beauty and relationships and other things. But in Taurus, she is at home and she knows her worth. She knows exactly what she brings to the table. She's like, I am the table, okay? I am the table. I am everything on it. Venus in Taurus is really claiming that, and that is supporting us in this moment that we're having where we are reclaiming our value. We're really seeing the wounds, that's Chiron, and the medicine, that's also Chiron. Chiron is both the wound and the medicine, and particularly he is alternative medicine. He is looking outside of the box, looking within, doing all kinds of practices with herbs and with astrology and alternative healing pathways. That's what Chiron represents. Okay. Eris also represents, again, she represents the discarded feminine. She is the goddess who was not invited to the party, and then she then threw the golden apple and declared that the most, beautiful, worthy, or deserving, etc., of the three main goddesses of the pantheon should have it, and that Paris would be the one to decide. Okay, so she's a bit of a troublemaker, but righteously so. She is also demanding to stand in her truth. So interestingly, I think that having Chiron as well as Eris there is representative of both the masculine and the feminine showing up in the ways that we have each been wounded to not feel deserving, not feel worthy, or to be made to feel that way by society or by, social constructs, and us, finally bringing that all to light, the sun and the moon together, where we can plant a new seed of, I am absolutely worthy and I am absolutely deserving. And I don't have to, do or be what you say I'm going to do or be in order to prove and deserve that. At the 29th degree of Aries, Aries is the self, and it's also the body, and it's like, the breath of life, that initial fire that gets things started. So at the 27th degree, that is almost the most mature that Aries can be. And so this is drawing upon your full knowledge of yourself and the fullness of your experiences, and knowing that you do bring so much to the table and that you do have so much specialness and awesomeness to you that is only yours. And, whether it's a culmination moment or a planting a new seed or a little of both, where we're like, yes, I'm starting this new version of me with a renewed sense of my own self-worth, my value, my place at the table, in the conversation, etc. Okay, so that's stellium 1. All right, now let's move to stellium 2. Okay, stellium 2 it's even kind of in two little parts, because Mercury is right up next to Neptune, and Saturn is right up next to Mars. Mars is he's on the approach to Saturn. So let's start with Mercury first, okay? So Mercury just finally got out of Pisces, hallelujah, but then bam, he runs straight into Neptune. Oh my gosh, it's like getting out of the ocean only to like fall into like a super deep puddle. That's like, where did this puddle even come from? Oh, it's a vortex puddle that's just like, this puddle in the middle of the fire. Anyway, so that's what Mercury just did, but technically he's 1 degree away and he's on his way out, and he's building momentum, so out of the puddle of proximity to Neptune. Okay, and it's not just like a puddle, it's like a vortex puddle, where it's like the puddle is, it might be only be this big, but it actually contains the entire ocean. So when you're in there, it's like you're just completely lost. But maybe he's got like one hand on the edge now because he's 1 degree of separation. So this is our thoughts, our minds, our way of thinking, our conscious like mind. being tied up with spirit. Now, there's good and bad to that, right? So being in that vortex of proximity to Neptune can be confusing and befuddling and make our conscious minds really confused and hard to put our fingers on things. But it can also keep us really tapped in to our greater spiritual self. And that is the biggest blessing of Mercury conjunct Neptune is, oh yeah, I'm not just me being a body, being a human. I'm actually an entire soul that is connected to God and the divine in the universe every second, everywhere, every which way. Oh yeah. And oh yeah, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. So there's a lot of value in that. Obviously, I feel like, again, I've mentioned that I feel like Neptune and Saturn coming together at the very first degree, the 0 degree of Aries, is the great spiritual reset of humanity's like current wave. And this moment where we're having this super stellium in Aries, Mercury is conjunct Neptune. And that's what I think that means. It's us in our minds uh, aligning our conscious mind with our spiritual higher self and our spiritual higher path. That is our great connection to the divine. Okay. Then we've got Mars, who's actually in charge of this whole sign, kind of. Okay. This is Mars's house. Aries is Mars's house. But when we've got all these other planets in Aries, Mars is like Uncle Mars, okay? Uncle Mars is in his own house, right? And yes, he is in charge, and yes, that's his house, that he freaking owns that house. However, Uncle Mars is also joined, by cousin Mercury, right? By cousin Chiron, by the sun and the moon, and most importantly, granddaddy Saturn and grandmother Neptune. Okay? And so while Mars might be in his own house, he's not overruling granddaddy Saturn. He is not overruling grandmother Neptune. And he's like, not going to just do everything completely his own way while he's got the sun, the moon, Chiron, Eris, and Mercury all up in the house. All right? So Mars is crowded in his own house and he wants to move forward. He wants to go fast. He wants to just take action without thinking about it. And he kind of can't because he's literally just gotten in the front door and then bam, there's grandmother Neptune. And then bam, now he's running into grandfather Saturn, Lord of Time. So he first got the check-in from grandmother Neptune. Are you aligned with your spirit? Are you, taking into consideration the entirety of your soul and your place in the cosmos, right? That's kind of a big check-in when Mars just got out of Pisces, got out of the ocean, and then jumped in the same puddle that Mercury is now in, of like the void of Neptune, of the complete depths of everything. The check-in, all right? And now he's past that, and now he's running into Saturn, right? And Saturn is the granddaddy lord of time and of responsibilities and of, tangible earthly things. Like, did you check your boxes? Are you going to do your homework? Which I think, honestly, this is a really wonderful thing, because with all this planetary energy in Aries, Mars is, of course, very tempted to just, get at the front of the bus and take this whole bus and just start driving off. But he's getting the check-ins from grandmother Neptune, like, did you check the map? Is this on our spiritual path? And then, as well as grandfather Saturn checking in and being like, well, did we bring enough money? What stops are we going to have to make along the way? How are we going to make money along the way? What are the practical considerations that we need to take in order for us to actually get to our destination? So this new moon overall has extra potent seed planting energy, because we have all these outer planets making important and long-lasting aspects to these inner planets and to the sun and the moon that are going to make whatever actions you take at this time really, really potentially very long lasting, like trajectories that can carry throughout the rest of this lifetime potentially. Maybe even more. I don't even know. I won't say it's not possible, okay, because it totally is, especially with Neptune. This can be a rebirth of your whole freaking soul. I mean it. Okay? This can be that your soul has paid its dues, its karma, and that now in this lifetime it's ready for an entirely new experience. And there's a lot of doom and gloom, and I just really, I with these planets, especially Pluto in Aquarius, Neptune in Aries, Uranus about to be in Gemini, making this harmonious grand trine, I only see this as having like favorable, positive outcomes for way most people who are ready to change and to evolve and to step into their own personal power, to innovate and to get on the next page. And I think that people who aren't ready to do that, I don't know, there's a lot of talk about timeline splits. And I think that's what this is saying to me, is that the people that are ready for an awesome experience are gonna have it. And the people that aren't ready for that, I don't know what's gonna happen. I kind of think that all the realities are like actually happening and they're all stacked on top of each other, and you just have to use your own frequency to like tune in to the one that you want to experience. So I think, yeah, so all of the people, we have all these, timelines and all of this array of experiences that are available to us, and we can use this moment to attune our own frequency to the highest thing that we can individually possibly reach from the energetic place that we are currently at. And we can ride that wave, we can ride that trajectory. It's an especially important time to get to the highest frequency that you can in your emotional vibration, in your thought forms, and what kinds of things that you're thinking about, and be aligned with your spirit and be bringing that spirit into your body. Okay, that's my general advice for this. And we've got another couple of things going on that are worth addressing. So Jupiter is here in Cancer, and Jupiter and Venus have just kind of left, but there's kind of still in a sextile. So a few days ago, they were in an exact sextile, and now it's just kind of a widening sextile. But this is gorgeous because, again, Jupiter in the sign of Cancer, and Venus is at home in Taurus. So they're both in really, really strong positions. Both of our two benefics, our Venus that rules like love and money and pleasure and beauty and self-worth, and Jupiter that rules like expansion and learning and higher thinking and foreign places and travel and getting bigger and getting awesomer and having it all. These are in favorable aspects to each other in an earth and a water sign, which is, sweet and emotional and tangible. And it's kind of rooting this whole chart a bit because we've got a lot of fire and a lot of air. And thank goodness Venus is in Taurus while she's got her feet on the ground. I mean, actually, Venus in Taurus has her entire body on the ground. She's just like lounging. She's like lounging in the moss. Okay, that's Venus in Taurus, like lounging in the moss, covered in flowers, just like foot in the stream, like just totally connected. That's Venus in Taurus. And connecting with Jupiter in Cancer is super beautiful energy that is, again, setting the stage for this entire thing. So I think that is the majority of what I have to say about this new moon. And okay, actually, no, there is a little bit more to it. So that's what's happening collectively. Now, to bring it down to a more personal level, you want to identify which house this new moon is falling in for you, okay? Because that's the area of life where you are being called to step into the next level of your identity and how you're meant to shine in the world and how you're meant to like bring your life force and what you're meant to start and embody. Okay, those are both Aries qualities, starting and embodiment. Right? So for example, I'll show you mine is in the 9th house. Okay. Transit by wheel. Okay, so here we have, this is my particular chart, okay? And so this sun and moon for me is happening at the very last degrees of Aries. Okay, so here's my chart, and you can see my natal planets are on the inside, and this is Aries up here, and this is where we're having this new moon, which is falling pretty much on my midheaven. So my midheaven is 0 degrees of Taurus. It's slightly in the 9th house. The 9th house is about publishing and expanding, right? This is the Jupiter house, about higher education, ideas, ideals, belief systems, and how we share those, education, of educational programs, especially higher learning. Okay, the midheaven is about where we show up in the world. And it's very interesting because the last new moon took place right around here, conjunct my Jupiter and my Saturn. And this is the cusp between the Jupiter house and the Saturn house in terms of, you know, the 9th house and the 10th house, right? So I'm getting a double theme here of it's time for me to be seen, to be public, and to claim my personal authority and to expand into someone who is comfortable being seen and enabling me to share what I have to share my ideas, my wisdom, my knowledge. Yeah, that's very like a new moon at the 9th house slash midheaven. So to find out where this is happening in your chart, you can pull up a free chart on astro.com and look at the house. And then there's like all kinds of free places where you can figure out what each house means. Like that. This is also the house of endings. Okay, so that's it. That's what I have to say about this Aries new moon. And thank you so much for joining me here and for any amount of positive encouragement or support that you feel in your hearts or that you want to express in comments or anything like that. I super duper appreciate it because again, I'm just a person and this is new for me. This is me doing my homework, my, you know, based on the astrology. I'm stepping into new things, I'm expanding, etc. And I'm glad that you are here with me to do this. Thank you so much. Mwah.